Bengal is the hub of progressive politics, be it TMC, be it left, be it IFF. Everyone is talking about harmony and trying to harmonize. To garner votes, parties do anything across the political spectrum. And this is a shortcoming of democracy. Bengali elites, Bengali Hindu elites, those who rule Bengal, they understand that Bengali Muslims are part of the fraternity and there is no essential division. Now, as far as Republic Bangla is concerned, how can it decide who is a Bangladeshi, who is an Indian? This is crossing the brief that they have and also crossing all limits of media ethics. The government is not respecting tribal rights. And on the other side, the tribes themselves are also so marginalized and they are in minority. So they cannot really change the policy of the state. Globally, we see that vigilante groups are percolating into various layers of society and they are operating from a safer area. Now, as far as Manipur conflict is concerned, it's a kind of a shining line or a shining hope, I would say, that certain security agencies are working in an unbiased manner on the ground. In Manipur, to a large extent, marauding forces were kept aside or kept apart by the role of Assam Rifles, who call themselves as the sentinels of the Northeast, and they are the oldest force, and therefore they haven't gone biased. The question of national security cannot be compromised by creating internal insecurity. National security in the case of Manipur would be protecting Manipur-Myanmar border. People who are organizing armed groups, creating vigilantes, they have to be restrained by the security agencies of the state. These people have lost legitimacy, and those people who have lost legitimacy need to be changed. Manipur really required for some time president's rule. That has not happened.
We are seeing Kuki-Meitei issue being raised more in European Parliament and UN than inside India, and within Christian society, within the minorities, within the tribal communities, as well as the Muslims of India.
No force can suddenly arbitrarily mix it up and eliminate it in a manner that these people become without identity, without history. That will be an offensive attack on their very existence itself, and Constitution doesn't allow that. Ethnic and tribal groups have been historically deprived and marginalized. So there is a solution that is possible to the Kuki, Jo and Meitei ethnic conflict. But that solution has not been undertaken in the right earnest with a lot of sincerity. Now we are being led to a totally regressive position the moment we try to identify a community in terms of one text or a one ritual. Hindu community is a culmination of number of sects, number of ideas, many of which have originated from outside India, and they have all germinated into a syncretic umbrella panorama of Hindu culture and Hindu religion. This process of otherization based on religious interpretation needs to be now confronted by using constitution, by using cultural interpretation of religion. Neither Hindu nationalism nor Christian nationalism nor Islamist positioning of an identity are acceptable within constitutional framework of nationalism. Now, Bhagavad Gita had been loved and revered by Anushilan Samiti, but that never has said that Muslims cannot be part of our larger unity. Just word identifies the enemy with evil. But should enemy be identified with evil?
Viewers, welcome to DYNT News. Today we have with us Dr. Prasenjit Biswas. He is HOD of Department of Philosophy at NEHU. He is a political commentator, and you have seen his face at many media debates where he is putting forward his point of view regarding the Kuki-Meitei question as well as question of Bengalis and the larger politics of anti-BJP. Today is giving us our time to discuss some important issues. But before we start, let us discuss something which Sir has just told me. In the background, the BJP RSS people are doing Gita part, and they are specifically reciting slokas from the section where Krishna and Arjuna are talking to each other. So, as per Sir, this is a precursor to just word political theology. Sir, what is just for political theology?
Actually, just war is, as Bhagavad Gita says, is to re-establish justice, is to remove the devilish and the evil forces. Now, this theory of just war is available across many religious texts, including Quran, Torah, even in Tripitaka. A theory of just war is based. Just war identifies the enemy with evil. But should enemy be identified with evil? Hitler had shown us that just war theory leads us to a certain kind of a xenophobia, ethnocentrism, and even it leads to genocidal politics. So, therefore, I see that the political theology is taking a toll on the cultural interpretations of religion. And in the context of Bengal, where we have this syncretic understanding of Hindus and Muslims worshipping together, uh, deities like Panchapir, or deities like Bogola Mata, or mother goddesses who are loved, revered, and worshipped, along with Ajan and along with going to the temple, is now under a crisis when there is a political theological interpretation of communities in terms of certain religious rituals, certain recitals that identify the enemy on the other side. So, this turning the other into an enemy, which was a mind camp strategy, a mind camp politics, is rapidly being spread by way of a softer religious discourse and by referring to the religious texts that are loved and revered by everyone. Now, Bhagavad Gita had been loved and revered by Anushilan Samiti, but that never has said that Muslims cannot be part of our larger unity. Now, here it is said that we have to maintain our own unity and our dharma is under crisis. স্বধর্মে নিধনং শ্রেয় পরধর্মে ভয়াবহ, they say, meaning thereby that we should die in our own religion than to be dying in the hands of another religion. Now, this kind of a religious binary is totally undesirable, unwarrantable in the context of cultural interpretation of any religion, which is now getting replaced by a political theological interpretation of the respective religions to create hard boundaries between one religious group and another religious group. David.
Yeah, but in this case, I think if we analyze uh, uh, the so-called broad sector called Hinduism,
Right.
then that Hinduism sector it is born out of reaction to religions, including the religions that the Hinduism thinks is inside the Hindu political formation. So from that perspective, whatever this group is currently doing, this RSS is currently doing, a new Hindutva, as we may say, they are doing, it is reflective of the politics of past. And in many ways, we have seen that the Gita and other Hindu mythology texts, it did inspire fascism as well as Nazism. We have Julius Evola and other thinkers, right, who have utilized these Gita. Heinrich Himmler used the Mahabharata to massacre Jews. So globally, the divide though is there. Right now, we are accepting that globally the divide is there. At the same time, I don't agree with their point that vernacular Hindutva is different and mainstream Hindutva is different, because what we ascertain as vernacular Hinduism, that is totally different than what we see political formation in the 1920s of Bengal within the Bengali Hindus, because they are not using Kali to unite the Hindu Bengali. They are using a new entity called Bangamata, which is not exactly religious, which then becomes the Bharat Mata. So the politics of yesteryears is again reflected just in a refined manner. So keeping that in mind, when you are intellectualizing the cookies or question, do you think somewhere the lack of connection between Manipur internal politics and its relation with the larger politics of India has kind of hampered the justice question of Kukizo, because there was Meitei fanatism before also. It was anti-India, and we see Kuki is being victim of the Naga. Also, Naga nationalism has also impacted Kukis very badly. So why not make this distinction, and why keep it within the Manipur? As as someone like our Home Minister Amit Shah wants it to stay there, not be used or rather intellectualized in the meta narrative. What is your point of view?
The meta narrative of the Indian identity is not based on Hindutva
Hmm.
or Islamist
Hmm.
theological interpretation.
Hmm.
So, therefore, even theological interpretation that talks of Christian socialism, Indian constitution and nationalism is very different from that, because it embraces every religious identity without falling into the trap of religious nationalism.
Hmm.
So, neither Hindu nationalism, nor Christian nationalism, nor Islamist positioning of an identity are acceptable within constitutional framework of nationalism. Now, this framework is before us. The framework allows for rights of ethnic minorities and religious minorities. So, you can have ethnic minority institutions in the form of Sikh schedule in order to give political rights, which you have given to Bodos in the form of territorial council, or you have enacted Sikh schedule in the case of Nagaland, Meghalaya, Tripura, and certain other areas of Northeast where ethnic and tribal groups have been historically deprived and marginalized. So there is a solution that is possible to the Kuki, Jo, and Meitei ethnic conflict. But that solution has not been undertaken in the right earnest with a lot of sincerity. So, what is needed is a sincerity and a political will that needs to be cultivated. That's one part of the answer. The second part of the answer, which is related to Hindutva ideology, I would say that Hindutva ideology or any such political theological interpretation, even of Islam, of Judaism, of even Christianity, have created far right wing forces. We know in Norway there is this Andre Breivik,
Hmm.
who is undergoing a life sentence because he had that hatred towards non Europeans, particularly targeting Muslims.
Hmm.
We also had seen there are some Jewish nationalists who openly propagate hate against Muslims. And we have seen in Bethlehem, the birthplace of Jesus, didn't have a lighted Christmas this time because hate was so toxic there even. So therefore, hate eats into the very ethos of a community, in terms of which the fundamentalists, the extremists, the terrorists try to articulate a position of superiority, dominance, or even exercising force over the other minority groups whom they otherize. So, therefore, this process of otherization based on religious interpretation needs to be now confronted by using constitution, by using cultural interpretation of religion. We have Mahatma Kabir, we have Mahatma Phule, we have Ambedkar, we have even Buddha. We have hundreds of examples of syncretizing religion as a form of life by including the other, by showing respect to the other faith, which is a necessary thing that one has to really take into account in order to understand how multicultural Indian identity is shaped. Multicultural Indian identity is shaped by a kind of a principle of coexistence, mutual love, respect for the other faith. That Mahatma Gandhi had always emphasized that one must respect the other faith as part of one's own personal character, and personal morality depends on respecting the other faith for Mahatma Gandhi. Now, this is the standard that is brought out by the constitution by both Gandhi and Ambedkar. Now we are being led to a totally regressive position the moment we try to identify a community in terms of one text or a one ritual. Hindu community is a culmination of number of sects, number of ideas, many of which have originated from outside India, and they have all germinated into a syncretic umbrella panorama of Hindu culture and Hindu religion, We cannot separate ourselves from that panorama, that panoramic background, and the foreground of coexistence of number of caste and communities. But in between, conflicts are created so that everyone sees themselves as different. This process of otherization is following from a kind of a narrow, bigoted interpretation of religious texts, and the practitioners who uphold those interpretations and take up arms against the other. So, this kind of a process needs to be brought to an end by a larger, harmonized, cultural, loving interpretation of religious texts, whereby other faiths are always respected.
So Prasenjit Biswas is basically giving an academic answer which many viewers won't understand. So I will try to deconstruct what sir is saying. Deconstructing Meitei
Absolutely.
nationalism, for example,
Absolutely.
how can a Christian, through the meta politics of India, understand that not only ethnic but the religious question of Kukizo is also under scanner in Manipur. The targeting of church, it matches targeting of church outside of Manipur also. We have Uncle Toms like Philem Rohan Singh and also the Archbishop who is inviting Modi to do Christmas activities. So how do we make the Christians outside India as well as inside India understand that faith is equally under pressure? Because we are seeing Pukizo issue being raised more in European Parliament and UN than inside India, and within Christian society, within the minorities, within the tribal communities, as well as the Muslims of India. How do you situate this? What do you say? This hypocrisy, if I may say it in this way.
I mean, there is something hypocritical about it, but there is also something bigger than mere hypocrisy. Because inviting the other to celebrate Christmas, which is a global celebration, which happens in Kolkata, in Bobarak Street, for example, shows the possibility of coming together. Christmas is one occasion when the world comes together and sings for love and peace of everyone, which is very tranquil, has a great impact in terms of harmony. So, therefore, Prime Minister Narendra Modi going for a celebration of Christmas is a welcome step. But contrarily, we see Bajrang Dal saying, whichever Hindu takes part in Christmas will be brutally beaten, and the image of the prime minister appears there down there, and that contrast and contradiction in which Hindutva politics is mired now, because Hindutva, being at the helm of the state, now realizes that everyone has to be taken together, no one can be left outside. Now, in the context of Manipur, when Christian churches, Christian minority is under a certain kind of attack, the attack cannot be undermined, and attackers also are totally desperate and directionless. What these attacks are going to achieve? Are they going to create a situation of genocide in Manipur? Are they going to divide Manipur, balkanize Manipur in a manner that communities cannot live together? Now, these kind of things are unconstitutional. These options are not available within constitutional democracy. Options that are available in constitutional democracy to mitigate difference and to create a sense of reconciliation is by way of asserting political rights, by ensuring economic and social justice that Ambedkar has spoken about in the constitution. So, therefore, we need to get back to those constitutional premises instead of falling back into the theological interpretation of religion, instead of hardening the social and political boundaries between ethnic communities, and opening up a path towards dialogue and mutual participation, so that a sense of respect can again be in the broad display, bringing back a sense of fraternity and brotherhood and sisterhood between communities which actually haven't fallen apart, but there is some artificial engineering of keeping them apart.
But considering that already genocide of Kukis have happened in Fal and Zomi and Mar community, how would you know, negotiate peace between them? This is one question. The second question is regarding the constitutional remedy provided by Dr. Ambedkar, the uh, the secularization of scheduled tribe which exists, it is under pressure by meta Hindu nationalists as well as vernacular Hindu nationalists of Manipur, who are seeking to remove Christians from scheduled tribe quota. We see similar kind of politics has happened to Gujjar Muslims in Kashmir. So the similarities are there, but still the people are not unable to decipher, is it so, or they don't want to see and they want to be Uncle Tom.
Very, very interesting question. Gujars in Kashmir, they had their representatives in the Constituent Assembly debate. And their Gujars, though they are Muslims, it was pointed out that there are Hindu Gujars. So caste-wise, they are all same, though there is religious difference. Religious difference doesn't take away the caste identity. That has been asserted in the Constituent Assembly debate by none other than Baba Sahib Ambedkar. So therefore, we cannot suddenly divide the caste identity in terms of narrow religious fragments. So therefore, Christians who are Dalits, Christian Dalits, for example, or Christians who are tribals, their caste and community identity, their social identity, as provided in the constitution in the form of OBC, SC, ST, MOBC, and certain political and logical categorization, has to be upheld at all cases. No force can suddenly arbitrarily mix it up and eliminate it in a manner that these people become without identity, without history. That will be an offensive attack on their very existence itself, and constitution doesn't allow that. Constitution allows flourishing of each of these smaller identities, and each of these smaller voices and groups are, are finding an expression in the form of group rights as well as in the form of individual rights in various provisions of the part 3 of the constitutions, especially in higher education, in the matter of propagation of one's own conscience, faith, rituals, language, culture, etc. Ample opportunities and non-discrimination on the basis of race, caste, gender is provided by the part 3 of the constitution, which has the ultimate source of strength as far as Indian Republic is concerned. So therefore, we have to uphold the constitution here and cannot allow constitution to be deracinated in any manner.
You have expressed it very well, but how to make people outside of Assam and Northeast and West Bengal understand how constitution is being subverted to do fascist politics, and it is happening through Assam Accord. It is happening right now. The Meiteis are trying to subvert the Indian constitution. The Bhadoloks of Kolkata have already subverted Indian constitution through cultural capital. You, by not allowing the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribe OBC to engage in education, higher education, not get placement inside government, inside the government aided madrasas as government schools, and not be able to do PhD. They are not considerable. So these experiments are happening, and in a way, the Assamese nationalist, the Meitei nationalist, and the Bhadoloks,
Nationalists.
uh, they have been able to outdo even the Hindu nationalists. But still, somehow, we are unable to make even the victim understand what is actually happening with them.
That's
How would you, what would you say to the victim? Because the victim is somehow, is living in a cocoon that it's only a political issue within the Hindu society. If the BJP is out, then everything is hunky dory. But we very well know, seeing how the Bengali question has evolved, that it will not be so. What would you say to the minorities of Manipur, as well as other minorities who would like to understand the situation of what may unfold in future through the Manipur question, through the Assam question?
a very, very significant question that you have asked. Through the Manipur question and Assam question, ethnic minorities have to understand that they cannot be perpetually made into victims, and they have to come together and assert their rights. They have their representatives in any case. Ethnic minorities do have so many representatives, and this electorate, those who have voted for them, they have to raise their voice now, and their voices will be heard. There is media, there are independent social activists, all of whom will come together to garner their own support as well as to give support. So that kind of a mutual support system is already in existence because of a larger democracy in India. Now this democracy is subverted openly by use of force, by use of state forces, by use of coercive mechanism. Now these coercive mechanisms also need to be exposed fully, that the purpose was to bring people together to help them rebuild their own lives after a genocide has happened. But people who have gone there have faced certain difficulties, certain obstructions, and these deliberate obstructions that have been put before people who want to work for peace is mostly unwelcome. And those who are putting such obstructions, they have no business to run the government. They have no moral legitimacy or political legitimacy to say that they are here in the government and government is for the people and by the people and of the people. So therefore these people have lost legitimacy, and those people who have lost legitimacy need to be changed. Manipur really required for some time president's rule. That has not happened, primarily because it's a double engine concept. Now, double engine concepts have resulted into massive violence, as in the case of Manipur. So we need to separate the engines together. Engines of growth is one engine, engine of social harmony is another engine of political reconciliation is another engine, and constitution is the biggest of all the engines. We have to keep in mind the constitutional provisions in order to re-establish reconciliation, harmony, and mutual respect for each other. People who are organizing armed groups, creating vigilantes, they have to be restrained by the security agencies of the state. Security agencies should not be turning a blind eye towards these armed groups and armed vigilantes. Now, both vigilantes are there, vigilante which is in self-defense. They are forced to be vigilante. Now, why that situation has emanated cannot be pushed under the carpet by tom-tomming the dominant form of nationalistic sentiments. So that is a wrong methodology that is often distorting the perception of the government. As far as Bengal is concerned and Bhadralok politics in Bengal is concerned, Bhadralok politics have been narrowing itself down, it has been minimalizing itself, and it has created a very distorted self-identity. They have to come out of it by rereading Tagore, by rereading Bankim Chandra, by reading Nazrul Islam more and more, by reading literature from Bangladesh. We have this vast, verdant book fair where lots of literature come, and young people should read this literature.
But right now, entry of Bangladesh literature is banned in India. We see in Barampur that there was controversy that some literature came from Bangladesh.
I hope the Book Fair and Publisher Guild doesn't suffer from that kind of narrowness, because a huge Bengali production and Bengali publication comes from Bangladesh. Monthly, I can give you a statistic of the 3,500 periodicals that come from Bengali in Bengali language. 2,700 are from Bangladesh. So therefore, Bangladesh language, literature, and the contribution to the vast, larger Bengali worldview needs to be upheld.
Now I will come to the Bangladesh question later.
Yes, yes.
You know, we have to engage with the within India better. You have said something that security agency must not allow the minority to become a vigilante, and unfortunately that has become the case in Manipur and other areas also, which we may not know. But even within the security apparatus, we are seeing Assam Rifles who are doing a stellar job of maintaining peace in Manipur by not being
Biased.
towards the Hindu majority, biased towards the Hindu majority. But we see that this is not liked by the people who are at the helm of the government, at the center, and also at the state of Manipur. So the conversion of state of Manipur from constitutional to prerogative. Do you feel that the Indian state at the center, it may also go that route with the things like what do you say, the Agniveer scheme, for example, that South that creates uh, trained people who may ultimately end up being armed by Bengal, a different kind of armed by Bengal. And we also seeing armed by Bengal opening offices in Kolkata, in Chandigarh, in Delhi, and security apparatus is not doing anything as such.
I mean, this is a very alarming situation that globally we see that vigilante groups are percolating into various layers of society, and they are operating from a safer area. Now, as far as Manipur conflict is concerned, it's a kind of a shining line or a shining hope, I would say, that certain security agencies are working in an unbiased manner on the ground, as you have named. Now, security agencies are not to be cronies of somebody. They have to maintain their professional integrity and independence. And if they are able to maintain it, then they will be able to really keep apart the marauding forces. So, in Manipur, to a large extent, marauding forces were kept aside or kept apart by the role of Assam Rifles, who call themselves as the sentinels of the Northeast, and they are the oldest force, and therefore they haven't gone biased, and therefore they have acted in a more judicious, balanced, and harmonious manner. I think other security agencies also have to follow the suit, because the question of national security cannot be compromised by creating internal insecurity. National security in the case of Manipur would be protecting Manipur Myanmar border. The border is protected if there is a community that lives in the border and protects the national border, which is none other than Kuki community. The south of Manipur is inhabited by them, and that's a kind of a natural societal protection apart from the security forces. So in all cases, government of India has to focus on that kind of a security management, which includes the local people. Without including the local people, security management will become impossible. So this is one part of it. The other part of it is that everywhere state has to be concerned about the divisive forces, and if divisive forces are coming from majority, that is even more of a cause of a concern. Majoritarian divisive forces, to whose response minoritarian divisive forces also come into play. Both sides have to be brought to a certain parity, which is an impossible thing, but this is how we can think of a peace building process, by mobilizing better people from within these communities, which is possible. They are waiting for that kind of a response as well, but it's not coming forth from the state.
But if we study the models, we have the Ranveer Sena.
Mm.
Now we are having Arambai Bengal. We have para Hindutva groups like Bajrang Dal, who have done killings of Graham Stellies, for example. They were involved in the Kandimal riots also, targeting Christians in 2008. So going forward, the way Muslims are getting targeted, and the way Bangladesh has been, the issues in Bangladesh has been utilized by the government without ensuring the security of Hindus of Bangladesh. What do you think is going to happen?
Now, once again, Bangladesh come into the center
Hmm.
stage. Now, entire South Asia is undergoing a certain kind of rumbling. In Myanmar, we know that whole of the Myanmar North is now not ruled by the Myanmar junta. It is rather ruled by independent ethnic militia groups and their social representation. So, socially, that area has been taken over. Bangladesh is also in the throes of a kind of an instability. We can see the role of Bangladeshi army, a segment of the ex-army people raising anti-India propaganda. And also the kind of attacks that have happened on Hindu minorities in Bangladesh is totally reprehensible. But the good thing is that the line of hope is that the well-meaning people in Bangladesh is not being governed and guided by this kind of a narrow understanding of Bangladesh society, which divides the Bangladesh society in terms of religion. Rather, they are governed by the perennial principle of including the minorities, But at the same time, in terms of security system, there are certain weaknesses, certain loopholes, certain biased individuals are creating problems. Those have to be addressed by the people who had led that kind of a revolution in Bangladesh, and we have to really look forward to a certain kind of a solution that can happen at this moment by bringing civil society, various segments of civil society, various parts of the security forces, and creating a dialogue in the context of Bangladesh, which I'm sure the supervising advisory government is trying to do all the time. And this is how where Bangladesh is really leading the way. And we need to really take forward that work that Bangladesh has done for peace building at this point of time.
But if you look at how Modi government utilizes the Bangladesh,
Hmm.
uh, Modi was doing propaganda from Orakandi to gain votes from the Bangladeshi Hindu community, which is a refugee
Yes,
in India,
yes, yes,
for 2021 West Bengal election.
yes,
And we're seeing the same strategy, how the lawyer of Chinmay Das is being allowed
yes,
to spew hatred,
yes,
and the Republic Bangla is targeting Bengali Muslims of Kolkata, especially Kosba, where we are. So this politics that is happening by using the dead body of minority in South Asia, how dangerous it is for a state like West Bengal.
for a state like West Bengal, where we have around 40% of Muslim population, of which 34% are Bengali Muslims, and there are rest other non-Bengali Muslims as well. So Bengali elites, Bengali Hindu elites, those who rule Bengal, they understand that Bengali Muslims are part of the fraternity, and there is no essential division. Though there is some kind of a pragmatic, practical division on an everyday basis, for the larger part of politicization, but that there is no essential division between Bengali Hindus and Muslims, that Bengali culture is a syncretic culture, that religious differences do not matter for Bengali identity, are primarily in the hallmark position as far as understanding of Bengaliness is concerned, and there is no ditching on that. That one should be very clear. Now, as far as some television channel considering certain parts of Bengali Muslim populations as Bangladeshi is concerned, or they are trying to blow up certain stories of security forces searching for Bangladeshis in the speedboats in Sundarban Delta, or searches that are conducted in certain suburbs of Kolkata as hounding the Bangladeshis, is totally deleterious, disastrous for the social fabric of Bengal. Such narratives are imported from elsewhere as if we are still living in the pre 1947 days. This reenactment of a partition mindset by certain corporate sponsored TV media is totally reprehensible, and the anchors who become face of it, they don't understand what damage they are doing to their own society. Now, as far as Republic Bangla is concerned, how can it decide who is a Bangladeshi, who is an Indian? This is crossing the brief that they have, and also crossing all limits of media ethics. They are acting in the most unethical manner, and therefore I think they must come back to their senses and do not create this division among the Bengalis by terming certain people as Bangladeshis and certain people as Indians. Now, in Bengal, we know that there is a huge diversity. The diversity is so huge that many people do not understand even the neighbor. There should be a better understanding of the neighbor who should not be otherized, and the difference in terms of religion, in terms of other cultural markers, should not lead to a sense of hatred and othering. That has to be prevented in all cases in Bengal, because Bengal is the hub of progressive politics, be it TMC, be it left, be it IFF. Everyone is talking about harmony and trying to harmonize. Though in between there are these vigilantes groups who are trying to create a toxic situation by attacking by organizing a mob and doing some mob attack. Those mob attackers need to be taken to task immediately by the Bengal government.
So we are seeing this politics of secular communal binary, and we are discussing ethno nationalism of some sorts. So when we are discussing ethno-nationalism, we have to go back to Assam, where Assam is the bedrock of Jati Mati Beti, which we see getting revived in Europe also in different way, blood, land, and race. So, do you think that the boat has already sailed because of the failure to deconstruct Assamese nationalism as fascist? We have somehow lost the bet, uh, because even well-meaning people like Harsh Mandar, they see Assamese fascism as secular and are unable to differentiate what harm it causes to the Bengali Hindus and the Bengali Muslims.
I won't say fascism, but there is ethno nationalism across Northeast. Even among the Bengalis, there is ethno nationalism,
But,
no
but,
doubt.
but it is not getting reflected in that way. Bengalis are not doing genocide of
No, no,
Tripolis.
but the point here is that
And also,
how the other side is looking at it.
no, but the
Now,
Cookies are also not doing genocide of the Meiteis or the Nagas. They were victims of genocide in 1993, as well as right now in 2020.
now it cannot be generalized. Situationally, everyone has become a victim, and somebody or the other has also targeted the other side. So there is this mutual targeting and othering that have gone into a long history and a long discourse of a parochial identity building process. We have to come out of that parochialism. Now, Assamese nationalism has many bright sides attached to this. One of the brighter side is to talk about Assamese Hindus and Assamese Muslims together, and also Bengali Muslims who are no Ohomia, who have transformed their own language and identity into Ohomia identity. Many people have argued against deconstructing Assamese identity by keeping them out as Mias. So that is also there as part of Assamese ethnic nationalism. So therefore, I cannot entirely brand it as totally anti-Bengali Muslim or anti-Bengali Hindu. Though there are occasions when such emptiness has come out more than
But,
the progressive
but
part of it.
even the BJP Assamese Hindu nationalist does not use UAPA against a Mia reciting poetry, which people like you know intellectuals of Assam who are against BJP they support. Usage of state fascism against Mias.
No, state coercion of all kinds,
Like for
including.
example, that museum issue, that
Yeah, yeah,
Mias.
I'm explaining this to you. Even in the museum issue,
Mm,
when our honorable, the then, I think the then health minister, Hemanta Biswa Sharma, had raised his objections, you know. But that was not the kind of a proposal brought by an individual or by a mere person. That was a proposal made by an assembly committee to have a museum that includes even the cultural mementos and evidences from the larger Bengali Muslim community. There was no reference to Mia as such. Mia is a kind of a distorted name that is given. So, therefore, such distortions are available, but distortions cannot rule the roost ultimately. For some time, it creates a kind of a conflagration. So, these distortions have to be fought by using the cultural logic, the idea of good life, the idea of social harmony, and many intellectuals in Assam have spoken for it. As far as UAPA is concerned, UAPA also requires a legal procedure, and the procedure has to be foolproof. Arbitrary use of UAPA is not at all justifiable. And therefore, in many of the UAPA cases, the way the rights of people, for example, Omar Khalid is still in jail and no one is hearing his case. So that kind of thing should not arise in a democracy, but it has happened. Is very unfortunate. We are undergoing a certain phase now. That phase is a phase of suppression of the rights of the political dissenters. Political dissenters have to be allowed in a democracy so that everyone is within certain decent limits of political discourse.
So, do you think all these activities that has happened in Manipur, in Assam, and how Himanta Biswa Sarma is targeting USTM, then Bangladesh issue being highlighted, is it to safeguard a particular crony capitalist in India
That
somehow change the mindset, you know, not bring out the actual, uh, what do you say, the actual movers and shakers of India.
no, the crony capitalists, such as one crony capitalist who is named everywhere, is trying to take hold of certain resources, no doubt, and certain state governments do facilitate it. But the point here is that the creation of an ethnic division and to protect the rights of a crony capitalist, it may have a minimal connection, but the connection is not so evident here. Crony capital is protected because crony capital pumps in a lot of money, illicit money, and that's how it gets a place in a certain state. So that illicit money laundering and illicit money making process that doesn't help something that is more fair and justiciable is something that has to be totally discarded, that has to be totally condemned. So this is one part of it. The other part of it is that, once again, falling back into the premise of social harmony, I would say that there is a fundamental irony in the case when a particular community is made to turn against the other community. Because that irony is that the community which is turning against the other community is actually getting victimized by that way of turning against the other community. Now, those who are doing something like a vigilante group, their families are totally shattered because their children have gone to a vigilante group and there is no social good left for them. The apparent social prestige that they get is only for some time. Later on, they all get totally alienated and isolated, and nobody remembers them. So, therefore, greater social good has to be kept in mind.
But if you look at the free movement reign
Mm.
or free movement
Regime,
regime,
yes.
there there is a Adani lobby that wants to create fence, and fencing automatically will go against previous Indian policy, which kind of satisfied the anti-colonial sentiments of the people who reside in the FMR. And you pointed out that how this Indian policy helps in protecting the borderlands of India. So, the conversion of a friend of India, conversion of people who fought for independence of India to a perpetual victim for satisfying capitalist needs. Even if the Meiteis get access to the hills, ultimately it is going to pass from the Meiteis to some capitalist, crony capitalist only. And it is not, it's actually not India's security question also. Because who, be it the Kukis or the Nagas, whoever controls the hills, they are ultimately Indians. So it is not a given that it has to be transferred to the Metis. So this satisfaction of greed and lust for land by cutting its own belly, which the Hindu nationalist government are doing and satisfying. How do intellectualize it?
I mean, there's no question of
This has
there's
happened
a
in Chhattisgarh
yeah, yeah.
also.
There's no question of an extra juridical intellectualization. What needs to be looked at is the rights of the local communities, the commons, as we call it, the hills, the mines, the water bodies, the forests. These are the commons, and commons have to be protected as far as the Biodiversity Act is concerned, as far as Sixth Schedule is concerned, as far as tribal rights is concerned. All these needs to be protected. Now, if a government doesn't want to respect this, and that will create a social unrest, which has happened unfortunately in Manipur. The government is not respecting tribal rights, and on the other side, the tribes themselves are also so marginalized and they are in minority, so they cannot really change the policy of the state. So central government has to intervene in a manner that they can re-establish the balance between the dominant community and the tribal communities of Manipur. And that doesn't require fragmentation, that requires giving them specific rights all of which could be combined and brought under a common umbrella of the state government as well, by keeping representations of every community there in an equitable manner. So this needs to be reworked. It's a problem of not being able to manage diversity, mismanagement of diversity, I would say. Yeah,
So, from a democracy question, Manipur democracy is in
shambles.
shambles. Democracy is non-existent in Assam. Democracy in West Bengal is also non-existent, and democracy in Maharashtra also is under question. So, are you seeing a kind of hypocrisy by the opposition? No, the opposition cannot always address the question of minority properly. That is part and parcel of electoral politics in India. But the question of democracy, do you think the hypocrisy is costing India? Because the Congress government, when it wins elections, it doesn't find problem in EVM, but suddenly it finds problem in EVM when it loses. Similar to the Trinamool Congress, same narratives they are using. But same time, the Trinamool Juggernaut in West Bengal is implementing much more stringent strategies, which even Sheikh Hasina in Bangladesh didn't do. So, how do you think it culminates with the security question as well as the democracy question of India within and outside?
The question of those steps where government becomes coercive, because government is left to the bureaucrats. It's not politicians who actually decide, because politicians are mindful of the electorate. I know that the bureaucracy is having a field day, and bureaucracy actually motivates the politicians to accept the actions that they take in a larger democratic context of India. So, how to rein in this rogue bureaucracy and the bureaucrats who have no respect for democratic values? This is what a political party should really look at and do some soul searching about it, especially a party like Trinamool Congress. The second important question that you raised is about EVM. We know that there are cases going on in Supreme Court. Let's wait for the outcome and the kind of investigation that Supreme Court is conducting. We know in certain cases the number of electorate had risen after the voting is over, and how that number has gone up has remained as an unresolved question. The Form 17 was not displayed as it should be displayed as part of the electoral process. So, therefore, we are still in a process of adjudicating the whole thing. Nowhere in major democracies, machine conducts elections. It was brought by Congress Party.
Mhm.
So, Congress Party is primarily responsible for bringing EVM. So now they are the biggest victim of it.
And they cry more.
So we should return in order to bring back the semblance of democracy and sanity and credibility. We should return to the ballot voting process. That sounds more credible as it is followed in the most of the major democracies of the world. India should not be an exception to follow EVM on the count that EVM can be counted so fast. And no, counting fast is important, but at the same time it should be error proof. So to be error proof, to mitigate the possibility of manipulation, it's better to return to the ballot voting, because counter evidences are always available through ballot voting. Now, the paper slips that are part of the EVM machine is not counted, because they say it's not possible to count it. Now, there is no matching between what has gone in the vote and the paper slips.
Now, Mr. Basir, we
Yeah,
can go into the technicalities.
yeah.
From physical point of view, last question. Uh, there is a party called Indian Secular Front. It is the only, perhaps, a party like this which is talking about Bangladeshi Hindus, is talking about minorities of Manipur, minorities of UP, vis-a-vis the Muslims, and is also talking about democracy within West Bengal. But we see national parties like the Congress who are kissing Sheikh Hasina in the same way Modi is kissing her. And we all know that the Sheikh Hasina did subvert democracy in Bangladesh, and Bangladeshi students have been able to protect their democratic institution by doing movement
Yeah,
against
Sheikh
Sheikh
Hasina
Hasina.
government.
But this question of democracy, again, going back to that, when will we see the national parties be Indian and less Hindu?
No, all national parties do not claim a Hindu identity. They play it subtly in order to garner votes. I
Even
agree to
soft
that.
Hindu?
As soft Hindu or hard Hindu to garner votes. To garner votes, parties do anything across the political spectrum. And this is a shortcoming of democratic process as well. The democratic process needs to be recalibrated in a manner that religious identity is not to be invoked. There should be a ban on invoking religious identities, both from the majority and the minority side. Minority is to be understood in cultural terms, and there should not be a concept of majority or a Hindu majority state or a Hindu Rashtra, which is tom-tommed. And that has resulted into all kinds of formations within other groups, within majority itself, and created a lot of division and polarization. Now, this process has resulted into this kind of contradictory, contrastive positionings that are illogical, irrational among the national parties. And therefore, it is not expected that sooner this situation is going to change unless there is a strong movement like Jayaprakash Narayan did in 1977, bringing together every section of the masses and putting out the right kind of demands related to livelihood, demand related to social security. Like pension system has been totally in disparagement. The old pension system has gone, and people are suffering, elderly people are suffering of all kinds of social insecurity across the country. And this is a major issue that it is not figuring much in the political agenda of political parties. So we are going astray by going towards the path of religious identities. We have so many social issues, so many economic issues to address. Even the question of our national, international security, diplomacy are to be addressed by an enlightened middle class, which now constitutes around 10% of India's population. They have to really put their heads together to prevent the division that is happening through political process, and try to reunite people at the social and the cultural level by keeping out for a while the question of religious majority and minority.
So, viewers, basically, we are engaging with the secular communal binary question, and I think we both agree that the BJP wants this opposition, and this opposition also wants BJP. And this Hindu Muslim politics will continue. The secular communal politics has to continue because otherwise, crony capitalism will not thrive. And if democracy is there, the capitalism at least cannot be crony. So thanks for watching DNT News. We shall discuss with other topics which Sir likes, something called minority within minorities. So we will look at the minority question in West Bengal, Assam, in Meta, India, as well as Manipur, and we will engage with Sir in a different way. So thanks for watching Indian News. Please like, share, subscribe, and go to our DNT app and participate in our polls. You will get real-time data, and if you don't like what we are discussing, please comment and like, share, subscribe. And remember our tagline: Democratize your nation today. Our motto: awaken one human at a time.